It's time for the Trading Stocks Made Easy podcast. Each week, Trading Stocks Made Easy demystifies stock trading and investing so you can profit big. And now, here's the host of Trading Stocks Made Easy, the wealthy investor, Tyrone Jackson.
And it's Tyrone Jackson. Welcome to another fabulous episode of Trading Stocks Made Easy. I am so happy that you would be here with me and that you take a little time out of your schedule to work on your financial consciousness and learn more and more about the stock market. You know, on this show, I always have on my students because they're regular people just like you. And I want you to be inspired, and I want you to see that people who have an interest in investing don't necessarily have to rush to a financial advisor as if, you know, they're the holy grail and they have the keys to the kingdom. That really, once you invest your time and you begin to learn about the stock market and the tremendous opportunities that are there, that you could really change your life. You know, there's a reason that most people in our world who are billionaires, it all comes from the stock market. So you look at a guy like Bill Gates, who became a billionaire many moons ago. His billions didn't come from fixing up houses on the weekend and renting them out. It really came from starting a company, taking that company public, and owning hundreds of thousands or millions of shares. So if you take any billionaire who is in the media today, you'll find that they all go back to the stock market. Why? Because they start companies, take them public. Now, the thing that you and I have is we have the advantage of having a piece of ownership in those companies. We don't have to go to the board of directors meetings or be singled out by name. We participate as the most successful companies in the world participate. And that, of course, is companies like Visa and MasterCard and Disney and American Express and IBM and Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola. You see, I've always been of the opinion if you actually use any of these brands on a regular and consistent basis, you should be a shareholder in that company. Now, I've said this on the show before, and it's really worth mentioning again. Can you open an online brokerage account and, let's say, buy one share of Netflix for $100? Of course you can. Can you buy one share of, let's say, Nike or Disney? Of course you can. And I have found that, you know, I use a saying in my program, which is your wealth is in your thinking, which means that it's really your money beliefs and how you think about money and perceived opportunities that really affect the amount of money that comes in your life, because money is really just energy. And those energies are affected by positive and negative thoughts. So if you have an open mind and you find yourself listening to this podcast on a consistent basis, maybe it's time for you now, instead of just listening, to take an action, to go to thewealthyinvestor.net, for example, and download one of our products so you can take that education to the next level. Some of you own stocks and you're saying, hey, I can get as much as I can from this free podcast, but you really need to be at Wealthy Investor Trade School, witradeschool.com, so you can see my trades in action week to week to week. Now, one of the other things I love about witradeschool.com, which is why I created it, is I will actually answer your questions every single week as the market is doing its thing, both going up and going down. But I'm going to tell you this, if you are not writing covered calls in what we call your cash account, and writing covered call options in your retirement account, you are missing out on thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in the stock market. Now, I didn't invent covered call writing, but what I did was become an expert at being able to buy and sell stocks and to generate monthly residual income from the income that comes from selling a call. For those of you who are a little bit more sophisticated, I'm talking about in the money, at the money, and out of the money covered calls. It is the best thing that's ever happened to me, and so I trumpet that theme wherever I go. Imagine how good it would feel if you knew that there was residual income coming in from the stock market month after month and for the rest of your life. You would not only feel good, but you would feel empowered. And that's really important, that you no longer feel like a victim to your circumstances financially, but you are actually in control of your financial destiny. So learning how to trade and invest in the stock market is really important so that you not only help your life, but you're able to help your friends, your family, your community, and your church. And those are just the facts. Well, when we come back from this break, you're going to meet one of my most successful students who talks about not only how her mindset has shifted and she's been able to help herself, but how she's been able to help her family repair a piece of real estate that without the stock market, they may not have been able to do. Trading Stocks Made Easy right here on iTunes, and I'll be back in a moment.
You're listening to the Trading Stocks Made Easy podcast. Want to learn more about how to trade and invest in the stock market? Visit thewealthyinvestor.net/products. That's thewealthyinvestor.net/products and order the Wealthy Investor's Guide to Stock Market Success audio series. This easy-to-follow 5-CD audio series and manual will teach you the basics of how to buy and sell stocks, how to collect quarterly dividends for life, plus hidden income generating strategies like covered call writing and volatility trading. Start creating financial freedom right now. Get the financial education you need to get ahead. Visit thewealthyinvestor.net/products.
Wealthy Investor, Wealthy Investor, WealthyInvestorRadio.com.
And welcome back, everybody. You know, one of the things I really want you to do is make sure that you go to thewealthyinvestor.net. That's thewealthyinvestor.net. Now, a lot of times people are always emailing me or asking me questions on Facebook. What stocks do you think are really great? What should I own for the long term? Could you explain covered call writing again? And all you really have to do is go to thewealthyinvestor.net, sign up for our free email service, and guess what? You're going to get all that information via email. But some of you are really ready to start trading and investing on your own, so you want to download and remember this product, The Wealthy Investor's Guide to Stock Market Success. There you'll find all the information you really need about covered call writing. Some of you want to follow my trades on a daily and weekly basis, and for you want to go to witradeschool.com. That's witradeschool.com. And therefore you can watch all of the videos at that membership website and email me questions on a weekly basis, and I can help you take your trading and your wealth building to the next level. Well, I'm excited that my next guest is here. You know, very often I have my most successful students on the show to talk about their experience. And I really want you to see, as somebody who listens to this podcast on a consistent and regular basis, that they are people just like you who really didn't have a whole lot of experience in the stock market, but certainly was hungry for the information that would change their life. Well, my guest today is Patricia Lopiccolo. Patricia, welcome to Trading Stocks Made Easy.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to have you here as a guest on the show. Now, just so people know, some people actually know you as the co-host of another show on iTunes. Is that correct?
That is true. That is true.
What's the name of that show?
That show would be Six Figure Actor.
Six Figure Actor. Now, just for those who may not have listened to that particular podcast, just give us a brief overview of what that show actually is.
Well, we're all about how to break into and succeed and actually get paid to do what you love if you're pursuing acting, which is act. I think most people know that it's hard. It's easy to act, but it's hard to get paid doing it. So we're all about being a guide for people who actually want to get paid.
Exactly. And I have to say, you're really wonderful on that show. I am familiar with it for certain, because my company actually produces that show.
That is true.
But you both and Elisa are really wonderful hosts. Let's talk a little bit more about your background, how you were raised, where you come from. Was your family, I think your family was sort of kind of associated in the real estate business, but you didn't know much about stocks. Tell us a little bit about your family history.
Sure. I was raised for the most part in Texas, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Very typical upbringing. My dad was a landscape architect. My mom was a nurse. But we lived, a very middle-class existence. Great. We had everything we needed, but we were paycheck to paycheck. My parents were not educated on how to manage money and make it work for you and all of that. So while we had enough, we never got to the point where we had more than enough. It was always paycheck to paycheck. And, every once in a while there would be something we needed or, that we couldn't get, or the lights would go off for a minute or two until that bill got paid. It was a wonderful childhood, but there was always that sort of that feeling of not quite enough money hanging over us.
Now, somewhere along the line, you wind up in New York City and you discover the stock market. Tell us about that.
Well, I did wind up in New York City. I came here to work for MTV Networks, and I had always known I would end up in New York City. It's where my father's family is from, and I love it. So I made a point of making sure that I ended up here. And I was here for a long time before I discovered the stock market. I mean, the stock market was never in my mind. I mean, I knew it was out there, obviously, but it never occurred to me that I could participate in it. So I was at MTV Networks. I had my 401k, that money was invested in mutual funds, and I really thought that was the extent of what I could do and what I needed to do for retirement. So I didn't discover the stock market for a really long time until you mentioned it to me.
And had you ever seen yourself as someone who either had enough money to invest in the stock market or would be participating in the market?
No. I mean, I very much kind of inherited just by living in the household that I grew up in. I sort of inherited that paycheck to paycheck way of living that felt normal to me, and certainly when I became an adult, that's what I recreated for myself. When I was working at MTV Networks, I had enough, but it was just enough, and at the end of every month, I was really needing that next paycheck. And again, I really didn't know of a way out of that other than investing in a 401k, saving a little bit of money on the side so that, when I was much, much older, I would have enough to live. But there never was this thought of, how can I create wealth? How can I create more than enough? How can I be financially free? That didn't occur to me as something that was possible for me unless, somebody handed me a lump sum of money, like I won the lottery or I had an inheritance or something like that. But outside of those things occurring, which were highly unlikely, it didn't occur to me that there was a possibility for me to participate in the stock market.
Well, one of the things that you learned early on and you've experienced is this shift in mindset. And I am a big believer in, there's an emotional, intellectual, and spiritual component to money. And I guess I teach and preach that simultaneously. Tell us about your mindset before you learned to trade stocks and create wealth for yourself, and your mindset after you've learned that skill.
Sure. Well, I mean, the very basic shift is just that it's just a matter of what is possible. Before you know something is possible, you can't really pursue it. So when you introduce the stock market to me and in your specific strategies and techniques for trading, all of a sudden this world of possibility opened up to me. I did not know that you could trade in the stock market and create monthly income and then take that income and either supplement your own income or reinvest it and grow your wealth exponentially. I didn't know that there was any way possible for me to create financial freedom in a relatively short amount of time, like a 5 to 10 year span. I mean, I had no idea that this was possible. So there was no way for me to go looking for it or to learn about it. So my mindset changed after you introduced the stock market to me and your techniques and strategies for trading, because it just opened up this, all of a sudden I knew it was possible. And that was amazing to me. If it's possible, then it's just a matter of learning it. And that can be done. So that was very exciting.
It's very exciting indeed. Now, as you began to realize the opportunities that existed in the stock market, you began to tell your friends, right, what you were doing. And what was their reaction overall?
Most of them were very, very skeptical. Very typical, well, if this is so possible, why isn't everybody doing it? If it's possible, there should, nobody should be living in poverty. People don't automatically, again, take into consideration, well, it has to do a lot with mindset and how you're raised, and you have to bump into somebody who gives you this information. It's just like, oh, well, if it's so possible, why isn't everybody doing it? Or, I don't know, you could lose money in the stock market, which is, of course, possible. You have to learn ways to minimize your risk. Some people are just so scared of the stock market that it's really, there's no way to show them logically that if you invest in certain stocks that have a certain history of earning money and haven't been around for a long time, the chances your money is going to go from, what you have to zero or next to nil. They just think that there's some outside threat somewhere that could come along. It's just because inside of them, it has to do what they believe is possible as well. So, yeah, I mean, there were a few people certainly who were open to hearing about it, but a lot of them were very skeptical.
So did that make you feel different from your friends, or like you needed a whole new friendship circle? What was your response and your reaction to that?
Well, luckily, you kind of get, when you're taking classes or pursuing this information, you kind of automatically get a new friendship circle and a new sphere of influence because you're around people who are also doing the same thing and also are now holding the same belief system that you do, that it is possible. I didn't know. I didn't think I needed a new set of friends. But I just didn't talk with those friends who had different mindset about money. I didn't talk about that subject with them anymore. That was off the table, but they still were my friends.
Yes. So you found a way to kind of pursue this new thing and yet still kind of let everybody else be. Why do you think that there's so much fear and skepticism for most people about what is possible for them financially, and certainly what is possible for them as it relates to investing in the market?
Gosh, I don't know. I think if I could answer that question, I could solve everybody's problems. I don't know. I think there's a number of different factors that go into it. The way you're raised, what you're told, the beliefs about money that your parents and your immediate family hold. I mean, when we're kids, we're so impressionable that we just take in what's around us as truth. And we believe in the adults around us so much that we just take in whatever they say as truth. And we don't know that it's that their truth comes from their perception of things, that it's not an absolute truth. It's just what they learned. So we don't know to question it. So we take it in, and sometimes even logically, if we can see that it might not be true, it's so ingrained in us that it's difficult to leave behind.
Well, you sound like an expert to me. That was very well said. Now, let's take people through, because you've been trading and investing on your own for how many years now?
3 to 4.
3 to 4 years?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So your first step was to open an online trading account.
Correct.
Right. Now, you can do that online, or you can actually just go to a branch somewhere. How did you do it? Because you have actually 3 accounts now. Is that right?
Now I have 2 of my own accounts and 1 that I manage.
Yes, we're gonna get it, because you've taken this knowledge and what you've done for your family is tremendous. But we'll get to that in just a second. How did you open your accounts, and where did you go?
I went online. I just opened them online, and if I had questions, I called the brokerage house.
Any particular company you favored, one over the other?
Of course, TD Ameritrade, because you recommend it.
Okay. Are there any other reasons that you actually like TD Ameritrade?
To be honest, I wanted this to be as simple as possible. That was the one you recommended. That's the one you went to. I went to. I liked the reasons you recommended it, because they are available 24/7, and that was certainly appealing to me. And the pricing of per trade seems in line and very reasonable with other services. And so I didn't do a lot of comparison shopping. I just wanted it to be easy, and I went and I did what you told me to do.
Okay. If only the rest of my life worked like that. Okay, so you've got your account open at TD Ameritrade. First trade you learn is covered calls. Do you remember your first covered call?
I do. Well, I don't remember what it was. I don't remember the company it was on, but I remember doing it.
And what was that feeling like when you made that guaranteed money?
Oh, it was awesome. It was so cool. It was so weird. I mean, it's like I pressed a couple buttons and somebody reached into my account and put some money in there. It's just really very strange and very cool feeling all at once. Plus, you kind of know you just took a first step on a new path, which just gives you that kind of tingly feeling of, oh, this is something new and it's real and I'm in it now.
Now, I ask a lot of my students who come on the show about volatility trading, and that is a thrill like no other under the right market conditions. And essentially what that means is buying a stock, and we program a sell order in, and when the stock hits that sell order, those shares automatically get sold and you get an email. Is volatility trading still one of your favorite trades?
It's certainly up there. I like it, and I've done it. I do think even though the actual execution of it is fairly simple, it is a slightly higher level of sophistication in order to do it, because you have to have an idea about when you want to sell, which stocks will work well for volatility trading, and what you're going to do if it doesn't go the way you want it to go. So sometimes I just keep it simple with covered calls, but I like volatility trading a lot. Yep, it can be very profitable. So who wouldn't like it?
Are you one of those people who likes to collect dividends?
I am. Yes, I am. I'm growing more and more excited about dividends, actually.
And what's your favorite stock right now in this market for dividends?
In my accounts, I don't purchase stocks and hold them for the purpose of dividend capturing. Well, that's not true. I do with two of them in my parents' account, which is Verizon and AT&T. And those are great because they're slightly lower cost, they're very stable stocks, and if you can accumulate a good amount of them fairly quickly, then you've got a nice little dividend check coming in, guaranteed every quarter.
Now, people always ask me whether I'm doing, television shows or they see me out in the world, what stock should I own? What stock should I own? If I were to ask you in today's market, we know the marketplace is always changing, but in today's market, if someone said to you, Patty, what are your favorite 3 stocks and why? Your response would be what?
Well, Disney is my top. I think you know that. I love Disney. It's stable. I understand the story. I don't think they're going anywhere. The products, what they do is aimed at families, which is kind of the largest customer base that you could possibly have. The management is just making very smart choices. And when you look at the chart, you can see all that reflected in their income and in the fact that the chart just goes up and up and up. And it doesn't necessarily take large jumps, but it consistently goes up. Again, they're just making smart choices. They used to pay an annual dividend. Now they made it twice a year. They've increased it on a regular basis. So I love Disney for all those reasons.
Is there anything else about this story, merchandising, the television business, the fact that they own the ABC television network? Is there anything else that compels you to own that stock with regard to we call it the company story, like how they actually earn money?
Well, obviously their movies. They've partnered and made some great choices in that area. They now own the Star Wars franchise, which of course lends itself to merchandising and all the things that go along with that. They own Pixar, so those wonderful Pixar movies that come out, those are now, go into the Disney income bank. But I think on every level, what they do, they, of course, make the most out of. They own the real estate that has the hotels, that has the, parking lots that you have to use to be around, to go into their amusement parks. And as you always say, if they need to increase their top-line revenue, all they have to do is come up a tiny bit on the cost of any of these things, and then they have served their shareholders by making sure that their top line revenue is there. So there's really nothing about the story that I don't like.
So Disney's one of your favorite picks. Your next pick would be what? Right
now, Nike. There's a few of them. There's Nike, there's Visa, there's MasterCard. I think I'm correct in saying that all 3 of those are part of the Dow. They're, very strong stocks. They've got the chart reflects strong earnings. Management is making good decisions. The stories are all great and they're understandable. And Visa and MasterCard recently split, so they're more accessible now to the retail investor. Whereas they used to be very, much more expensive, which makes those stocks exciting as well. Nike's just doing very, very well on the business side and income generating side. So those are 3 great ones, I think.
Now, all 3 of those stocks happen to all pay a quarterly dividend. Is that appealing to you, or do you like the aspect that the stock has done so well over, let's say, a 5-year period?
No, they're both appealing to me. I like the fact that they pay dividends for a couple of reasons. One, I like to receive them. And secondly, it, as you've taught, I wouldn't know this without you, but it keeps if the stock should experience a fall in its price for whatever reason, external reasons, what's happening politically or whatever, that dividend will kind of prop up that price. It will prevent it from going down too far, as opposed to a stock that does not have a dividend. So for both those reasons, I like that it has a dividend, and I tend to choose dividend-paying stocks. Plus, if you're in it for a while, say, if you're selling covered calls and for whatever reason you're not getting called out of your position, meaning that you're holding the stock for a while, then you earn some money while you're doing it.
Absolutely. And we know where there's dividend, there's a yield. So when the stock actually declines, the yield goes higher, right? And it's like a guaranteed payment on a quarterly basis. So the institutions usually swarm down on the stock when the stock price goes down, because they can get a very high yield if they just actually sit in the stock.
Yes, you're very better. You're a lot better at using the correct terms.
Right.
So, thank you.
Well, I am the teacher, so that's a good thing. All right. So let me ask you this, Patty, because sometimes it sounds really rosy. People come on the show and they talk about how much money they're making in dividend collection and cover calls. Have you ever lost money in the stock market?
You know that I have.
Well, what did you? We learn from our losses, right?
Uh-huh.
And what do you learn from when you buy a stock and it, let's say, declines $7, $10? What did you learn from that?
I learned that I don't like it. No, I mean, first of all, one of the things I think that you learn is that you learn to withstand that, that is going to happen in the stock market, and you can't, go crazy over it. You can't freak out or get all emotional. Like that is going to happen to some stocks that you own, especially if they're stocks without a dividend, not part of the Dow, maybe a new technology that hasn't been quite proven yet. So one of the things that I learned, which, of course, that was my case when I lost money. I was sort of playing around with a stock that was new to the market and was quote unquote hot. And I'm not unhappy that I did, because I learned some lessons from it. I learned that for me, I would want my account to be much bigger before I were to play around with something like that again, because it's very possible that it's not going to go the way that you think it's going to. So, you learn how to handle it both emotionally. You learn what you can do on the way down as well, which is an important skill.
Yes. And believe it or not, we can't get into it during this podcast, but there are a multitude of ways to actually profit from a stock when it's in decline.
Yes.
All right. Well, we have to take a commercial right now, but when we come back, we're going to talk about some of the tremendous things that you have done to help your family. And you've put your whole family in a totally different financial position because you have gotten this financial education. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would.
Okay. Well, when we come back to Trading Stocks Made Easy with Tyrone Jackson, we're going to talk more with Patricia Lopiccolo, and she's going to share her story on how she's helped her family right after this.
You're listening to the Trading Stocks Made Easy podcast. Want to learn more about how to trade and invest in the stock market? Visit thewealthyinvestor.net/products. That's thewealthyinvestor.net/products and order the Wealthy Investor's Guide to Stock Market Success audio series. This easy-to-follow 5-CD audio series and manual will teach you the basics of how to buy and sell stocks, how to collect quarterly dividends for life, plus hidden income generating strategies like covered call writing and volatility trading. Start creating financial freedom right now. Get the financial education you need to get ahead. Visit thewealthyinvestor.net/products.
Wealthy Investor, Wealthy Investor, WealthyInvestorRadio.com.
Welcome back to Trading Stocks Made Easy. It's Tyrone Jackson with my special guest today, Patricia Lopiccolo. So we are back. Now, before the break, we were talking about the stocks that you like for the long term and the nature of their story, how companies actually make money and management. But you've done something wonderful with your family and your family's money. Can you just explain to the audience what you've done?
We have always had in our family for a very, very long time a piece of property, and it was there, and it was appreciating year to year as it would or not, depending on the market. But because I was taking your classes and because I started to learn about money and how to manage money and how to make it work for you, I started to realize that was actually an asset. At the time we were spending money to take care of it, And I realized that was actually an asset, and that could be producing money rather than us. It was a little bit of a burden. We all wanted to keep it in the family, but because we were middle class, not wealthy, it was a bit of a burden on how to do that. And all of a sudden, the light bulb went on because I was starting to gain this new wealth consciousness that there was a way to work with that equity in that property that would make it produce income. And so that's basically that's the idea that I presented to them, and eventually they did it.
Well, not everyone was thrilled with this, hey, we're going to refinance this property and put this money in the stock market and fix up and maintain the property through, monthly covered call income. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's not so much that they weren't thrilled with the idea. They didn't believe it. They didn't believe that it was possible, and even if it was possible, they didn't believe that it was low risk. They thought that it was extremely risky and that we could lose the entire property by doing it. So they certainly had some objections, and I think it took me, honestly, about 9 months to a year to educate everybody and win everybody over. And I don't think I got everybody, but I got enough of them that we were able to move forward. And now, everybody's seeing that it actually does work.
Well, let's go back to this persuasion, these persuasive tools that you used, because you actually drew up a strategy and you said, if we took some of this money out of this real estate and we were writing covered calls, it would produce X amount of dollars a month, and we could actually service the farm and repairs. So what did you do or say in that 9-month period that converted the skeptics?
It was a lot of conversations. I think that there was a little bit of research online, and thankfully the research that they happened to find supported my position. And it was a very slow process of opening up their minds, and again, a lot of conversations. I think the thing that really made the difference, honestly, is that I was able to bring them to one of your classes, and they were able to hear it explained from you. Who would do a much better job than I do, and that really convinced everybody that it was at least that they needed to at least be open to it, and that we needed to give it a try.
Right, and I believe that account over the last 24 months has lost like no money and produced income every single month, right?
Correct. Right now, it has produced income every single month. My parents are getting the dividends, so they get a supplement to their income that they can use however they want. And the other thing that it's doing, which is super, super important, is that it's paying off the loan. So over time, that loan will be paid off. That equity will be back in the property. We could choose to do something with it again or not, but we'll have the money that was in the stock market. And if we had just left the property as it was and not done anything with it, I think in the recent market, the property value might have appreciated a few percentage points, or maybe not, or might have declined a little bit. It wouldn't have produced that income every month. We wouldn't be creating an account, a brokerage account that was funded so that we could continue our trading, and there'd be no opportunity to make that money grow. So it's really, the first thing that had to happen was a completely different way of thinking and believing in what was possible, and then, of course, knowing how to do it.
Well, let me go back here, because just so our audience understands. In other words, your family took some money out of, in terms of equity, like a refi, put that money into the stock market. Because of covered call writing, you used a particular allocation strategy where your parents would be getting dividends every 13 weeks from major companies. Mm-hmm. Then you took another portion of the money that was invested and you used that for covered call monthly income, right?
Correct.
And then that monthly income goes into an account which helps pay back the loan. Correct. And repairs on the farm itself, correct?
Correct.
So that is like a win-win-win. Now, also, the money that you put in the account, in the investment portion, is rising in value, right?
It is. Over time, it is rising in value, yes.
Right. I mean, the value of the account is certainly more than what you initially put in, right?
It's like a seed that's been planted and is already growing and sprouting, and it's only going to do that more and more over time and pick up momentum.
Okay. Now, what do the people in your family who were initially skeptical about this whole plan, what's their reaction today?
Most of them are completely on board. My parents are obviously the most aware because they're getting the dividends every month. The skeptics in my family, I think, are still skeptical. Like, I don't know what they think might happen. Because we're invested in all Dow stocks, and our money is not going to go to zero. But again, it's hard to sometimes change people's mindset. But they see that we haven't lost money. They see that good things are happening, and so I think slowly but surely they're getting as excited as I was.
Now, there was also a little fear and trepidation because, you're not a professional money manager. You've never worked on Wall Street, right?
They were given advice also from professional money managers who advised them that covered calls was not the way to go, that they needed to be the person that was advising some of my family members just believed really in mutual funds. So that was the advice they were given, and that was the only or the best way to be safe in the stock market. So they had a lot of fear about investing in individual stocks and what could happen to their value.
How do you feel knowing that you're helping your family every single month with the financial education that you have? Oh,
it feels amazing. I mean, I really can't even describe how it feels, especially because, they don't see the big picture yet. But I do, I mean, they see that their lives have improved, that the piece of property is no longer a burden, that there's a way to pay for the things that need to be paid for, and it doesn't have to come out of their pockets. And I think, of course, my parents enjoy the dividends, and I think my siblings are aware that my parents are getting dividends, but it doesn't have as much of an immediate impact on them. So they know that things are better. I mean, they know that things are different and things are better and that nothing terrible has happened with the equity that we took out of the property. But they don't really see where this is going. They don't see the big picture. They don't see how that we have put ourselves on a different financial path altogether, and that 10 years from now, our lives will be completely different financially simply because we put money in the stock market, we invested it wisely with low risk, and we just stuck with it over time.
And one of the things I always encourage people to do is, if you follow the wealthy investor approach to the stock market, is not only make your life better, but reach out and help someone else, your family, your church, right? It gives you more money to give away. Some people just give away their dividend checks straight to their church or their synagogue or their community, whatever it is. You also have a son, is that right?
I do.
And what does this financial education, from your view, mean to your son's future? Because he's going to inherit your money beliefs.
Yeah, it's going to be so different. I mean, it already is. The things, he's 5, so I don't talk to him much about money, but I'm starting to introduce some concepts, and they're very different than the ones that I grew up with, and I can teach him how he can finance his college education. Not that I'm not going to put money away for him, but, I mean, I can teach him how to invest and have an income for himself from the very beginning, like while he's in school. He's going to be learning about the stock market early. He's going to know what's possible early. He's not going to have those financially limiting beliefs that I had, and I just can only imagine what that's going to mean for his future.
Well, it certainly sounds like he's very fortunate to have you as a mother born in the right place at the right time.
Yes.
What words of advice would you give to someone who says, I sort of kind of like this wealthy investor program. It sounds good, or it sounds too good to be true?
Be open. The same thing that you tell us. You don't have to believe it. Just be open to it. Try it. It's a learning process. Take a little bit of money. If you're starting out with nothing, I mean, I was starting out with no brokerage account, so I had to put monthly deposits in and save up to get to the point where I could invest. So if you're starting from there, great. You'll learn when your account is kind of small. Any mistakes you make won't be too terrible, and then you'll just grow. But just be open and just get started and just try it and see if it works. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain.
One of my students says, I preach the gospel of financial success, which is a little hard for me to digest, but you are certainly when I started this program, I started out to help other people. And the fact that I've not only been able to help you, but also your family is tremendous. And I cannot thank you enough for coming on today.
Well, it's true. You have helped us so much, and I really thank you, and I was happy to be here.
All right. Well, that'll do it for this episode of Trading Stocks Made Easy. This was a wonderful illustration of how when we get the right financial education, we can not only change our lives, but also help the people around us. All right. Well, keep following me here on iTunes or Stitcher Radio or however it is that you're actually finding us, because you have the ability to change your financial future, not someday, right now. Your next step is to go to thewealthyinvestor.net, sign up for our free newsletter, because our next teleconference series is just around the corner. I'm Tyrone Jackson, the Wealthy Investor, saying I'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the Trading Stocks Made Easy podcast. Be sure to rate and review our show on iTunes. While you're on iTunes, be sure to click the subscribe button and you'll automatically receive our next episode.